Welcome, coders, to our next unit. The next unit we're going to look at are what we call functions, or modular coding. So up to this point, you've worked on your core structure pieces. You've got input, output, you've got decisions, and we have our looping iterations. So what comes next that we want to talk about is the actual structures that we code with. So up to this point, everything we've coded in our programming projects has just been one line, next line, next line, next line, next line, and everything just sits in there. All right, which is a flow of control, which is totally correct. It's fine, no issues. What we're going to look at here, we're going to start our look at this functional task, or modular programming, meaning you're going to make modules. And this is just an introduction to the topic, but the functions idea is that you're now going to use those linear tasks to say, hey, I want you as the boss to go do this, now go do this, now go do this. And the do this definitions and code are not listed linearly in that same set of braces, in the int main, shall we say. They are in their own unique areas. So let's talk and let's look at this first as a theory, and then we're going to look at a coding example, and then I'm going to have you code one with me in the second video for this week. So this whole idea of modular programming definition is just taking a larger task and breaking it up into manageable pieces. So one of the things we can do is, as teams of programmers, is we each get our own assigned tasks, we each code our own piece, and then all we have to do is just call the pieces individually in sequence, and the program should work. So it's a nice way of divvying up the work between a team of coders as well, or just yourself. So if you're taking the project on, you're going to say, I'm going to work on this today. So this is my goal, this is the functional goal that I want, and you make sure the program works with all of that, just that piece. And now you know it's solid, so you can use it and plug it in when you need to use it. You can just say, hey, go do this task, and you know it works. All right, so it's just a collection of statements that are going to complete something. Now these things can return values. All right, some of these times these tasks are just go do something. It doesn't calculate something, it just does it. Like maybe in our simpler programs right now, we're just, let's say, just go output something. All right, output a declaration or something. So it would be maybe a menu for a choice of a calculator menu, maybe add, subtract, multiply, divide, just thinking one off the top of my head. All right, so these things can take lots of forms and functions. Good pun. All right, so what we're talking about is that in your linear up to this point, you've had all these statements, but now what we'll do is we'll just have three, and we'll call all these statements through these functions. So it's a way of breaking up a larger task and then making it more readable. So that's the other caveat about functional programming, is that it really gives you the story of your project, the story of your code in the main, where you can now read what it's doing instead of having to decipher every piece of code. So this just allows for this objectivity, I guess you could say, where we can make modules of this. All right, and you go from there. Okay. All right. So what does this look like? All right, so that's what we're going to look at here first today. So defining and calling a function. So defining is you have to first, as a coder, decide, well, what task do you want to have happen? So that would be the defining moment, and then the actual write the code for it. All right, that's something we would need to do. Calling functions is just say, hey, now go do this. So calling it is like saying, calling on a student in class to give me the answer. That's calling the function, and that person's responsibility is to facilitate a response and bring it back to the class in a whole. So again, that's the concept that we have here. All right. So the function call is going to be the statement that causes the function to execute, and the function definition, when we say write the definition of a function, you're actually writing the code that would then complete the task. All right. So the function definition, all right, that's the new piece. That's kind of like where we're putting everything together into these pieces, these modules. The first thing is it needs to know if there's a return type. So is it calculating something or is it not calculating something? And if it is returning something, then what data type is that? Right? If it's not returning something, it's just void of any return. So we would call that, technically the word for that is void, like I said. whereas maybe it returns an integer. Then it would be an int function, we call them. All right. So if you think about the int main that you've been running and working in, and at the end there's a return 0 for it when it executes, that's because it's an int function that returns a value of 0 errors when the program is done and that the program is now complete. Okay. Name is what do you want to call it? So int main being the name that the C++ project looks for to get started. That's its initial function. All right. A parameter list is what's in parentheses. So right now there hasn't been anything in parentheses in our int main, obviously, because the int main just gets started. So it doesn't need any task or information to get itself started. And the last piece is the body. What are the coded instructions that you want it to follow? So that's what's inside the braces. So basically we've described what an int main function looks like. All right? And this is the definition of what a function will take a look at and what we'll see. Okay. So here it is with the int main all broken out. So the header line, which is all of the first row, the int main in the parentheses, which is the return type, the name, and the parameter list, that header always is listed first. And then inside the braces is the code you want to follow. So this is the initial code that launches every time we open up code blocks. If a function returns a value, it's going to return whatever the data type is, that first piece. Again, like I was saying earlier, that what if it doesn't return? So it just like maybe prints out a menu or a calculated driven piece later that's going to be just forecasting something. Well, it's a void, meaning it's not going to return anything. And you can see then when this code is done in the actual coded definition piece, there is no return statement. It's gone. We don't use it because there's nothing returning. So we wouldn't put it there. If you put it there, it would cause a syntactical error in the running of your code, or technically it wouldn't run. All right. So to call a function, we just call it by its name. Say, hey, go do this. So if we call on a student, we just call the student by its name. So it's the same ideology that when you're communicating with each other in the real world is what we're doing with this code. What happens is then it will go do that. So if we call on the student to answer the question, he or she will do the code, he or she will formulate an answer, and then return that. And we'll just sit there waiting. We don't have to exercise our brain. We just kind of put on pause and we wait for that response. Now the computer's pause response is like a split second, so between executing of code and then function and back. So we don't really see a pause, but if we were acting this out, there would be a pause. All right. So here's a program that just displays this message. It's a very simple. Here's the main function where things get started. All right. It says hello from main. All right, just outputting that. You can see that's what the output is. Then it calls in the next line of code. It says display message. Now here's where it's calling the function. All right, to go up here and display the message. Now it's a void function. It doesn't return anything. It just outputs that message. All right. And then it continues on and says, oh, the next line of code is the output back in function main again. And you can see the three things get outputted in that order. All right. And we go from there. Okay. So the flow of control, you can see the arrows kind of jump you around. As we get started, we go into this line, display message jumps up here, does this code, then when it's done, it jumps back and continues on with the main. So it just goes out, does its stuff, and comes back in, just like calling on a student. Whoops. Okay. Of course, I just hit the wrong button. So make sure that when you call these functions, that the code works straightforward. All right, that you can call as many functions as you want in a main. Just it's one at a time. They're in a sequence. They're in an order that you would want for your algorithm or project to complete. Yes, functions can call other functions, meaning that if you're inside a function and you want that function now to call another one, yes, it can get stacked, and we call that a stack delivery system. And the compiler must always know what the function is about before it can call it. So you saw in that example, go back here, the code, you can see that as this program compiles top down, it recognizes the display message. So when we come across the display message here in line 22, it knew that it knows it exists. All right, so it's already kind of been declared, but it's really just defining. But it's been declared to the computer's compiling system that this command display message exists, and it knows where to find it now. So if this wasn't listed up here, we would have been in trouble. All right. Now, moving forward, we will not define functions up here. We always list the main function first because it's, when we're looking at code, we read that. So we need to have a workaround, and you'll see that in a video coming up shortly. All right, how we handle that situation. But we want to take a look at an example of a function you've probably already used. All right, so there's different ways that we can call functions, and that's what we want to look at. So to close out this video, we're going to look at a current piece, a project that has a function in it, one that we didn't have to define. And we looked at some of these earlier in the year just as placeholders and ideas. So here in code blocks, you can see I have a project here that I have all my includes ready to fly. This is the sandbox, by the way. And then I have declarations. I have A, B, and C with a comment. The sides of a right triangle. So, Pythagorean theorem, all right, in its glory. So A squared plus B squared equals C squared. That's that little theorem that we have for solving right triangles between the legs and the hypotenuse. The hypotenuse being the C side, the largest side of the triangle. All right. So let's see what the project is doing for us. So we're input. What are the value of the legs of the right triangle? So we input A and B, the two legs. All right. The calculation here, it's calculating C. So we can see there C is getting calculated, the square root of A times A plus B times B. So A squared plus B squared. And take the square root. So here is a function, all right? Square root is a function that we have that the computer's like, well, I never defined it, but we did. See, the square root function is actually located and found in the include C math header. All right, in that file that the computer pulls now in when we run this project are all these mathematical functions. Congratulations. So we actually did define it. We just didn't do it ourselves personally. We just incorporated the code somebody has done for us already. So again, using the module that somebody else wrote, we're using it here. All right, and then the output of the hypotenuse of our triangle is such and such. So if we were to run this, let's put in the numbers 3 and 4. And there's the hypotenuse value is 5, so 3, 4, 5, because 9 plus 16 is 25, which is the square root of 25 is 5. So there is our value. So this is a functional piece. So here's what I'd like you to do. All right, at the close of this project, you are going to take this program, and I'm going to have a place for you to turn it in. I would like you to type in this project so you have your own calculation of the hypotenuse. All right, and you're going to put a little twist on it. All right, you're going to add in, all right, a second set of code that will then calculate the leg of the hypotenuse. Okay, so make sure you do another set of input, calculate, and output that will then calculate the leg. Given the hypotenuse, given one leg, you got to calculate the other leg. So that is your assignment to see if now call it so that you can then invoke the square root function properly by including the header. All right, so please submit that for class credit, and we will go from there. All right, see you in the next video, class.